All right. I think it says we are live now. Let me do a quick check. Quick check, excuse me, of my mobile device. 'Cause I always do this, make sure that we're up. And yes, it says we are live. We are live, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you so much. Welcome back to another edition of Collect All Monsters, more so of a side project on Collect All Monsters. The last time I was here, I did the gigantic Shin Showdown with, fellow Collect All Monsters host John Ruffin. Of course, Gojira 851, Matt Jacobson, and I've done a few side projects on this channel before, and we talked about collectibles, gigantic shins, and other stuff. Now we're talking about another collectible, or at least another important part to why we love these movies. And of course, we're talking about kaiju music. Of course, you know me, Leslie P. Chambers, on behalf of Collect All Monsters. And as you can see, I'm not here alone. I have a great, cool guy, one of the strongest and most loyal and dedicated supporters of our show since the inception of this awesome endeavor. He is there pretty much every single show that we have. He has done live unboxings with a few members of the crew on Collect All Monsters. Just a really positive pillar in our community that we have built here in Collect All Monsters. And of course, he is a kaiju music guru and the awesome mastermind behind Turntable Tuesdays on the awesome and amazing Collect All Monsters Monster Collectors Facebook group, the one and the only Jonathan Portman. What's going on, Johnny? How you doing, sir?
I mean, that was the intro of intros, man. I mean, I was like, the whole time you were saying that stuff, I was like, oh, am I worthy? Am I worthy? But dude, thank you so much. It's the fact that you asked me to come do this. I love this music. I love this sort of side of it. And to be able to talk to somebody with somebody about it is truly a dream, because my wife's here, enough about this, and people that probably would rather not hear about it, but just love to listen to me like riff. So finally, we can actually talk about it with some people of like mind. It's very exciting.
And honestly, again, this is the official title of this discussion is Face the Kaiju Music Part 1. This is more so a mild discussion between myself and Jonathan. We're going one-on-one, but at some point we will get together with other people on an expanded panel, and we get more people involved, and we will revisit this topic of kaiju music. And the reason I want to do this, because for one, like I said, Jonathan is a kaiju music guru, if you will. Again, he's behind Turntable Tuesdays. And the reason why I want to do this, because I think, and this is something that I don't think get talked about a lot. I will check in with the chat in a few seconds, but I think that when we talk about kaiju movies, whether it's movies, TV shows, or whatever, it's, of course, the visuals of seeing these awesome colossal creatures is astounding to see. But I think the music that goes along with these movies and these stories is equally as important. You know what I mean? And I want to reference a quote from Steven Spielberg that I saw just recently about Jaws. And these old school documentaries where they talk with the director about what was going through their mind when they made a certain movie. And he made a comment during the documentary that he owes the success, in his opinion, that half of the reason why Jaws is regarded as one of the greatest movies of all time, horror movies, suspenseful movies of all time, half of that goes to the awesome score to John Williams, for John Williams doing that movie.
Amen.
And he said that if you watch Jaws, with the music and everything, it's a compelling movie. But if you watch Jaws on mute, and let's say you watch the scene where the shark attacks the girl in the beginning of the movie, yes, it's disturbing to see her thrash back and forth by something that you can't see, but it doesn't feel the same because the iconic bup is not in the background. And I did that, and I was like, wow, he was actually right. So I tried that with a Godzilla film. I tried it with Ghidra, the three-headed monster, and I did the scene where Ghidra gets attacked all at one time at the very end by Godzilla, Rodan, and Mothra. And again, it was fun seeing those monsters beat the crap out of each other, but it was something missing because I had it on mute. And it was the Ifukube epic soundtrack in the background. And I think in addition to King Ghidorah, Godzilla, and Mothra, and all these different characters that we see on these movies, I think the music itself is a character. Would you agree with that, Jonathan?
Oh, absolutely. The fact that, I think about this a lot, and it holds true for Godzilla movies especially, and the Kaiju Eiga, is that Akira Ifukube really created a voice in personality for each monster that he created a theme for. So they all
Absolutely.
have varied, you think about Rodan. Rodan has this very brooding, horrific sort of tone to it, and it elicits that emotion. Like music elicits emotional response out of us, and it's very different when it's taken away. In some movies, it's good to have moments where there isn't music, and they stand on their own. But then when you have those powerful moments, with the themes of these kaiju, especially, the way the music varies so much, the marches, it just elicits so many feelings. Like you get chills at certain parts of these movies when you know the thing is about to happen, right? And you don't get. I've seen a lot of science fiction and in classic science fiction, and this is very true. I don't want to name names because I'm not that experienced in terms of composers all around, but Bernard Herrmann comes to mind, who did a lot of the classic American sci-fi films. The Day the Earth Stood Still. They used some of his work in Lost in Space, the first season, and throughout. And his music and he did a lot of Jason and the Argonauts. He did a lot of the Harryhausen stuff too, and his stuff is in the same vein, right? He created these themes and these cues that really punch us in the soul and capture us to remember those moments we love about those movies so much. And that's what is big for me, is the music always made me remember that moment in a film that brought me back to it. And it's always the first thing I cognitively usually think of when I'm watching a movie for the first time, is I'm listening to the music just in my ear, just to kind of hear if I like it or if it is, memorable, it stands out. Godzilla movies, kaiju movies, 100% that is true.
And the thing about the music of these films is, like, even as a Godzilla fan, especially if you're a dedicated Godzilla fan, all it takes is you to hear like the 3 or 4 notes of a particular theme, and it's like you can finish it. It's like ba 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 ba,
Yeah.
And of course, we're not gonna play any official tracks on this show because we ain't trying to get flagged for copyright. We might hum a few things, but that's about it.
Yeah.
But you hear that, or you hear um bum 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 bum, like exactly who it is, like you know exactly who what that theme song is associated to.
It's like Hulk Hogan walking down the ring. You hear that music, you hear that theme,
you hear
like,
it.
that's Hulk Hogan. If you hear dun 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 dun, you're like, that's Godzilla. Like, even people that probably don't know much about Godzilla, they'll hear it and be like, that's Godzilla. Like,
yes, or da 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 da. Like, what it is. You can. I mean, it could be one or two things. It could be Varan, or it could be Rodan. It just depends on who you talk to. But again, the music in these films are so important. And I know as Godzilla fans, you'd be lying to yourself if you told me that you've never hummed or at least sang one of these. Yeah. You know what I mean? Even to this day, like I'm because the radio, they play pretty much the same songs over and over and over again. It is nothing for me to put on Persecutions of the Masses from Shin and just put my headphones on, or put it in the or put it on my Bluetooth and just ride down the road and just be calm. Or I can hear like the soundtrack to 1974. It's just the music is just so timeless, and it's unfortunate that a lot of people don't really talk about this. But we're providing you that with the mild discussion for that today. All right. Now, of course, this is going to be the start of a very kaiju-filled, inciting day in terms of entertainment. I want to give you a couple of shout outs to some more shows that are happening behind us later on this afternoon. Of course, we're providing you with, Face the Kaiju music. We're talking about music and all that good stuff. Around 8 o'clock, the Monsters with Attitude show, Adrian Seto and Cody and all those awesome people, they're doing a retrospective on the Monsterverse. That's going to be awesome. And then later on tonight, I think around 9 o'clock Eastern time, word is short for a reason. Fresh Vinyl Live is coming back tonight.
Amen.
Yes. So
stop the press.
Absolutely. And you're getting yourselves a kaiju-filled, entertainment-centric day. You know what I mean? Now, before we go into the questions, let me just hit up the chat. All
Yes.
right, Godzilla Train 1090, as always. Thank you very much.
What's up,
Jason
Adrian?
Portman.
Oh,
Jason
my brother.
Portman.
What's up, bro?
He's your brother? Oh, okay.
He's my
What's up,
twin
bro,
brother.
bro?
Twin brother who loves Star Wars like I love Godzilla. That's his thing. So he's like,
Oh my God.
oh,
Have you
oh
tried to
yeah,
fool people? Have you tried to fool people and say, and when people come up to you and
yeah.
say, "Are you the one that likes Godzilla?" No, I'm the one that likes Star Wars, but really, you're the one that
Well,
likes Godzilla.
there's a few funny stories behind that, but I will save those for another day because they are kind of involved. But they're hilarious. Yeah, we did that in school a few times. We had the same class. I would sit in his seat and he would sit in mine. We literally went through the whole class. The teacher didn't notice, didn't say anything. Like I raised my hand, he called me like on me. He's like, Jason, and everyone's kind of looking at me like, what are you? And I was like, just like, no, like just stuff like that. We would always do, and we didn't do it often though, because over the years we've kind of gotten different enough away from each other. Like we try to dress differently in our hairstyle. People kind of, they've seen us, they can tell the difference, but people that are seeing us for the first time, it is very difficult. That's at least from my experience.
I did not know you had a twin brother. See, the things you
Yeah.
know on Collect All Monsters, you find
Yeah.
out on
Right.
Collect All Monsters.
Yes,
All right, let me go through the chat some more.
please.
Eraser Triple X, love that name. Thank you. Liam Foley, as
Amazing.
always. He asked the question: when am I going to review the the Godzilla 2000 kit? I'm assuming you're talking about the KOC.
Ooh.
I'm gonna try and do it next month. I got a few other stuff that's coming. I got the next one that's coming is going to be the KOC 62. That would be the next one on deck.
Dun, dun,
Probably
dun.
towards the end of next month, maybe, but at least before G Fest. Because you know me, my schedule is really hectic and all that good stuff. But trust me, that review is coming. Thirsty Thursday Toys, Mark Nosler,
What's up, Mark?
5E Milio Bico Negra. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to butcher your name. Kaiju Kim, what's up, Kim? What's going on with you? Yeah, Helmy. Helmy's in there.
Oh, 5
Oh
a.m.
God.
Helmy. My goodness
Thank you.
gracious.
Well, thank y'all so much. He says it's 5 a.m. over there. Best way to
Yeah.
wake up. Thank you so much. Again, just like Jonathan, you know, you're one of those ones that's always there. Liam Foley, got to the train 1090. Like, and I speak on behalf of the rest of my co-hosts. Y'all have no idea what that means to us. It's just to have that unwavering, dedicated support is why we are where we are today. Without y'all, again, I know it's a cliche that people tend to throw out, but it is so true. Without y'all, we wouldn't be here. So thank y'all so much. I really do
The bright
appreciate
side
it.
of the
Now,
community.
absolutely. Now I have a few questions for John, and of course, if John want to hit me with a question, he's more than welcome to. But if not, we're gonna just go with these questions. We're not gonna go too long-winded with it in a way, because I got like 20-something questions. But we'll give you as much as we can. You know, we're gonna try to be here for at least like an hour and a half to 2 hours, at least before the other shows come on. All right, here's the first question, and since you're the guest, Jonathan, you can go first, and then I'll go last. And of course, people in the chat, once you hear the question, if you want to pipe in your answers in the chat and get some conversations going, you know how I like to do things around here, keep it really engaging, feel free to do so.
Indeed.
And you know my questions.
This is the one that I asked you, and I said, "Is this?" You're like, just to give me a taste, and you're like, "Yes," and you gave me that question. I immediately was like, "Whoa, okay, that's loaded." But yeah.
All right. Here's the first question. And again, people in the chat, if you hear the question, you want to welcome to answer in the chat too.
Please.
All right, Jonathan. What are your top 3 favorite kaiju scores / soundtracks?
Ooh. Okay. Well, right off the bat just happens to be my favorite Godzilla movie of all time, and that is Mothra versus Godzilla. We're pretty much, if you think about it, once we got past King Kong versus Godzilla, Mothra versus Godzilla, a lot of those cues and themes that we would continue to hear kind of evolved into their greatness, like the Godzilla theme, that dun 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 dun, like those note progressions. That was like when he found that was it. Mothra. I mean, there's so much to say about that one. Like if Fukube's Mothra take, Sacred Springs. God, my goodness, I could go on forever, but I won't. War of the Gargantuas. And these are in The first one is number one, but the next two might flip flop. It's always fluid, right? There's always stuff going up and down the list. But War of the Gargantua is just the Gyra theme. I think it's one of the greatest monster pieces of all time. You hear that? It is so punchy, like that. Dun, dun, dun,
Mm.
dun, dun, and then the trilling trumpets. Dun, 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 dun.
He's
Whenever I
coming.
hear that,
He's
it
coming.
like I get chills, man. I really do. Like it's up there with like Frankenstein and the Wolfman. Like you put them all up there, Godzilla, whatever. Um, Third one, and this is because it's a personal nostalgic favorite of mine, and I love this one to death, and it's very unique. Is Reijiro Kuroku's Godzilla 1984 score. It's very different,
Ooh.
and
Oh.
when I was very young, right? When you're a kid and you're experiencing stuff for the first time, like whether it be dinosaurs or whatever you get into, you're a sponge. You intake everything that you're seeing and you get influenced by those things. Like I got influenced by dinosaurs. That helped with Godzilla when I was introduced to that when I was 5. And I heard that music. The music essentially opened me up to what I now listen to today. I strictly only listen to score music because of Godzilla, because of Akira Ifukube and Masaru Sato and all those guys. That's why.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, Reijiro Kuroku's 1984 score, I heard, I mean, obviously 1985, really, because when we were young, that's all I was exposed to until we saw the 84 version. But there are those tracks from Christopher Young. They used some New World Pictures, used some of his tracks from this movie he did called DEFCON 4. That's where all the rights problems come into thing with like making 1985 into a Blu-ray, because there's so many like there's these weird tricks with the rights to the music. There's like the battle over, but some of his music was peppered in there, and it fits perfectly. And I have some of it, like I play it from time to time. I did my own little mix where it's like combined with the 84 score, but that score by him, just the timelessness of it, the 80s, the tone, the atmosphere, it's brooding, it's dark, it's romantic. It's like romanticized devastation. I freaking love that score. And that's it. That's the top 3.
My wife just in the chat. What's up, Sandra? Thank you.
What's up, Sandra?
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
That is love, my friend, and support.
You know what? I got to veer off here just a little bit.
Please.
That's how I know that we were really meant for each other. Aside from the fact that we're soulmates and all that good stuff, but we know we complement each other really well. Now, mind you, when we got together, I did not know that she was a Godzilla fan. Now she kind of like, I won't say fell off, but she kind of like lost track of the films. She watched them growing up because she was exposed to pretty much the same ones we grew up watching. Megalon, King Kong versus Godzilla, the original Godzilla. So once we find out that we were both Godzilla fans, we was really over the moon about it. Then once we started living together, and again going back to why this music is timeless, right? 'Cause at that point when we started living together, I would watch Godzilla movies every now and then. I try not to force feed her all that stuff. If she happens to watch it with me, fine. But I never said, "Hey, let's watch a movie. What we're gonna watch, Godzilla." I never done that. At least I try not to, anyway.
Yeah.
But I remember one time. I was in the bedroom. No, I was in the bedroom. I was in the living room watching TV, and she was on her computer in the living room because we have a computer in our living room. And I'm sitting there watching, and I forgot what it was. And all of a sudden, she starts whistling the theme song to Destroy All Monsters. She started whistling. She's like, da, 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 da. I'm like,
come again?
I'm like, what? I love you. I love you so much. I love you so much right now. And then one time I was in the bedroom, and she's in the kitchen. I think she was cooking some food and she was frying some chicken. And all of a sudden, because she's a magnificent singer. She's a wonderful, awesome singer. She has a great, powerful voice. She could be an R&B artist, quite frankly.
Got to hear that Sacred Spring sometime then.
I'm going to try to get her to do that. Maybe at G-Fest or maybe one of these times when we have a show, whatever. But one time, I'm in the bedroom. She's in the kitchen. And of course, like I said, she likes to sing, she likes to hum, just various stuff. She could make the McDonald's jingle sound like something, like I said, an R&B artist, a national recorded artist.
Put some soul into it.
Put some soul into it. You know what I mean? So I'm sitting there, I'm waiting for the food to get done because I'm hungry at this point. All of a sudden, I hear her go, ba 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 ba.
Yes.
Oh God,
Amazing.
she started singing this theme song or the main title of the GMK. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you know what? We're going to the courthouse on Monday. We're going to do this all over again.
It's when people say, marry this woman or
Oh
marry
God
this
Almighty!
man. It's like, it's that moment. You're like, you're gonna pull the trigger, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I will.
And so again, that's also a great testament to how you know how it can lure more people in. Because again, GMK was a movie that brought her back more so as a Godzilla fan. That was the movie and the
Great
Godzilla
movie.
design. Yes, and the Godzilla design that made her say, you know what, I want to be more in the know with your community, and now she's a part of it. So, and
Absolutely.
and even to this day, like it doesn't take much. Like she's seen enough Godzilla movies now where she would sing the theme song to Terra Mecha Godzilla, or she'll sing the theme song to the main, not the main title, but she'll sing King Ghidorah's theme song, because she has heard it so many different times that she'll just start singing kaiju things on her own. And every single time I'm like, I just that Jordan meme, that crying meme I always post on Facebook. That's just me. I'm sitting there crying, looking at it like,
Or the one the guy at the basketball game. He's just like,
yeah. Oh
I
god.
love
So
that one.
she's awesome. Let's see, to answer this question, my
Yes,
top
indeed.
3 favorite kaiju soundtracks. Again, we kind of had the same brain. We kind of share in the same brain right now. My top one is, of course, Mothra versus Godzilla. To me, I kind of I always go back.
Amen.
I always go back what David said. It's like that. It's like just Toho, at least everybody's firing on all cylinders. Say what you will
Absolutely.
about the film. Say what you will about Godzilla being clumsy. Say what you will about the fights not being what it should be, or like what it was in the prior film King Kong versus Godzilla. But you'd be hard pressed to find a fan to say that the score is anything but perfection, because that score is so amazing. It really is.
Absolutely.
Number 2, I know this cheating a little bit, but Godzilla versus Gigan, and I know that
Okay.
sounds
No, not necessarily. I'm curious. I want to hear.
um because it has because it has we all know that because we talked about Gigan in March, and we know Gigan, at least for some people, is not the best movie in the world for a lot of reasons. Stock footage, the Godzilla suits falling apart, the
Yeah.
fact that you stop music, whatever. But to me, I think the stop music that was used and the way it was inserted in every single scene in Gigan was done to perfection. And they pulled like great epic music from Ifukube from epic movies. Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Monster Zero, not Monster Zero, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Mothra vs. Godzilla, King Kong Escapes, Frankenstein Conquers the World, just epic pieces of music. And that's the thing. Music can be a character, like we said in the beginning of the show. And it's like that scene where Godzilla rises up out of Tokyo Bay with anger to finally confront King Ghidorah and Gigan is the same music that was used when Godzilla was attacking Nagoya in Mothra vs. Godzilla. In 64, it was used because Godzilla is a sinister force of nature. He's going to destroy everything. But when it's inserted in Gigan, it's like King Ghidorah and Gigan, you're in trouble. So,
Yeah.
and again, the same thing happened with 91, right? Same thing happened with 91, where when you hear King Ghidorah's theme when he's first unleashed in the movie, you have that, remastered, iconic, old school thing from Ifukube, and it's menacing, kind of like Godzilla's is very menacing. But at the very end, when Godzilla becomes the bad guy in the story, when they do that swap around character-wise between him and King Ghidorah, and Mecha King Ghidorah flies in from the sky, and he's the de facto babyface to stop an evil Godzilla, and they use that exact same thing. Now, even though it's the same music, it takes on a different life of its own, because now King Ghidorah's not coming to destroy Japan; he's coming to save Japan, and it has more of a you can get behind it as more heroic. So again, it's amazing how Ifukube put together these awesome pieces of music, but yet when you use that same piece of music for 2 different scenes, it still tells a great story, no matter what.
Mindfully, very mindful. I
Right?
mean, it elicits a response, and we know he understood the moment, right? He could have made a different theme, but no, that's King Ghidorah's theme. So we will associate that with his good side of nature because we know he's being controlled by Emmy. And the same thing in, like you said, in Godzilla vs. Gigan. I agree with you 100%. The music editor, or whoever, the editorial staff, whoever pulled those library tracks, did a very great job of putting those certain tracks in those certain moments. And like you're right, when he pulls up with Anguirus to finally fight them, it's so epic. It's not a bad. It's not like a bad thing. Oh no, Godzilla's coming. It's all right. Godzilla's here. Let's mess some shit up. And excuse my language, but yeah.
Oh, you're fine because it took them a while to get from Monster Island to Japan, and we have a few scenes where we see Godzilla and Anguirus. They're swimming as fast as they could because they know that the Earth is being destroyed, and they're trying to get there as fast as they could.
Battle in outer space.
Right, but then when they finally show up again, he rises up, and it's that Mothra versus Godzilla theme. I'm like, you know what? That's just sheer perfection. And my third favorite kaiju soundtrack of all time, Terra Mechagodzilla. I cannot talk about that theme, or at least the soundtrack of that movie enough. And I feel real bad that Terra Mechagodzilla it's not in my top 10, but it's right outside of it. But the music, oh my God. And I'm glad they finally brought Ifukube back after being gone for, I guess, 8 years. 7, because the last Godzilla movie he made at that point was Destroy All Monsters, or he scored, excuse me.
Yeah.
And he had nothing to do with the 70s films prior to Terror, maybe with the exception of Gigan, but then again, it's just stop music.
In name only, yeah.
Yeah, he didn't really score anything original. So it's kind of funny that, and very appropriate that since Terror at the time was not really known at the time that Terror was going to be the last film of the Showa period. But it's kind of ironic that they were able to get the original director of Godzilla that really started this in the first place, as well as the original composer that started this in the first place, with that film that ended up being the last one. But again, the theme, like you said, the blending of the fact that Ifukube can make a separate theme for each monster, but yet he can blend them all together into one piece. That's perfection. That's perfection to me.
Terra Mechagodzilla is and don't get me wrong, there's so many to choose from. I love this music all equally. Some a little more than others, only because of like the way the film means to me. But Terra Mechagodzilla is a phenomenal score, and it's a perfect end cap to the first set of movies, the Showa era. And it almost is like think about it. You got Masaru Sato's and Jun Fukuda's fun kind of hip, 70s Mechagodzilla, right? And you got this big band sort of jazzy score, and it's great. It's fun. It's light. It's amazing. And then you have on the flip side what Ifukube is able to do with that same monster or that same mech, right? The Mechagodzilla, and completely create a new identity. And we associate them both in different ways because of that. It's like Mechagodzilla. He's a force, right? But in a different way in the first one. And then you have Terror. Way more brooding, way more like terrifying. Like that theme is like, whoa. Like
yes.
Chef's kiss, really.
Absolutely. Godzilla Train 10-9 just asked me, Leslie, what was your favorite? I think I missed it. Yes, the same as Jonathan's. Mothra vs. Godzilla is my favorite. So again, Mothra vs. Godzilla is my favorite. Second favorite is Gigan. Third favorite is Terror. All right.
Great lineup.
Here, thank you. So here's the next question. Of course, I already shared this question with you. Let's go ahead and go into it right now. In your opinion, which kaiju villain had the best theme?
This is the one. Okay.
It gets worse, trust me.
I debated myself on this a little bit, but I came down to there. I could go with the very iconic, King Ghidorah, which is an amazing theme. Just every note, every expression, every pace in the tempo. I could also go with Gyra. That was another favorite. And here's a kind of not a trick one, but like could go with Godzilla in 1964 when he emerges. Technically he's a villain at that time, and that theme is so like dark in my opinion. It's so like Godzilla is here. Oh crap. So I think my favorite though, and there's also Mechagodzilla 2 from 1993. that main title.
Oh yeah, that's right.
First seeing that, like, or hearing it for the first time, because when we got that Crescendo Records album by La La Land Records or whatever.
Yes.
No, it was
Yes.
Crescendo Records. They did like that best stuff or whatever, and that was one of the themes on there. And I hadn't seen the movie yet; like those hadn't been released in America, so I heard
Oh,
that
okay.
music, and I was
Yeah.
like, "What is this?" And I was like, "Oh my goodness, I have to see this movie now." But I think if I were to choose a favorite, I would probably go with. Damn you, Leslie! I knew it. I knew your questions. I was like, Leslie's the king of questions, so I was like, I had to be prepared, and that just threw me off. I love all three of them equally, but there's one that edges them all out, and that has to be my boy Godzilla, because that his original theme, right? I mean, he's had many themes, but the one I associate most is his villainous theme, and which has always been replayed and retooled. But that first emergence, that dun 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 dun, it's kind of like, it's not really tempoed, right? It's kind of a little staggered in the tempo. It creates this like really off kilter sort of feel to it. Yeah, I gotta go with Mosagoji's Godzilla theme.
Okay, let's see. For me,
yes,
I will go with again, I just talked about this movie. I'm gonna go with Mechagodzilla's theme from Terror. It's just something about that da 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 da. I just God, I love that. To be honest, between the two movies, I prefer 74 as a movie. But the score to Terror is on like another level. And again, his theme, Mechagodzilla's theme in particular, that's I can't even speak because that's how awesome the theme is to me.
I hear you.
So Mechagodzilla 2, or at least 75, from Terror Mechagodzilla. All right. Here's the next question, and you have to choose between one of these.
Ooh, okay.
All right. Which one is the better Ifukube score? Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster or Destroy All Monsters?
Destroy All Monsters.
Wow, you answered that real quickly. I thought I was going to trump you with that one.
See, it's only because Destroy All Monsters was my very first Godzilla movie. My uncle, when I was 5 years old, he brought over this movie on VHS. He was like, it was taped off the TV. It was missing the first 10 minutes. He forgot to record, so I started watching it when they're on the moon base after the initial opening. So I didn't see Monsterland and all that stuff. But hearing that dun 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 dun, like the main title, hearing that for the first time, all I did was I hummed it all the time. It was in my head. To this day, that soundtrack, I think overall, is really amazing. And even though they really play the hell out of that main title throughout the movie, I can never get enough of it. Every time I hear it, and when the rockets are shooting at them in the city, when the JSDF they're pulling up, like Anguirus shows up and all them in the forest and the mountains.
Yeah.
Man, I'm telling you, Destroy All Monsters for me, without a doubt. Even though Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster is an amazing score, right? And it brings us for the first time King Ghidorah's score. Man, that Destroy All Monsters just gets me, man.
You know what? I guess it's the part where we're gonna be split in the middle, because I'm gonna pick Ghidorah. Pretty much the same reason why you chose Destroy All Monsters, because I didn't see Destroy All Monsters until way late in life. After really when the 98 film came out, and by that time I seen pretty much it. Because we didn't, in North Carolina, we didn't have access to Destroy All Monsters. They would play it on the Sci-Fi Channel, but where I live, we didn't have the Sci-Fi Channel. I knew Destroy All Monsters existed, but I just couldn't be able to get my hands on a copy to watch it. Only until the 98 film came out. And again, up until that point, I've seen pretty much every Godzilla film, aside from the ones from the Heisei films that they were going to bring out at that time. But I grew up on Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster And so I guess for the same reason you chose Destroy All Monsters, I'm gonna choose Geech Three-Headed Monster. Honestly, you can't go wrong with either one, quite frankly,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
they're both are strong scores, and the fact that Ifukube made not one but two epic scores in the span of 1 year in 1964. God Almighty!
I mean, think about it. You go from like and then a 6 month period. I mean, and not only that, but think about it. Dogura also came out in
Yes,
'64. I mean,
that's right.
my man was slaying themes and cues like for all three of those. And if I'm missing some, or if I'm missing one, I apologize, but that's the three that come to mind.
I
But
mean,
my goodness.
not to mention '65. He did Monster Zero, Frankenstein Conquers the World,
Oh yeah,
um,
two heavy
and
hitters.
yeah. So it's again that man was amazing. But yeah, um,
Powerhouse.
powerhouse indeed. Um, so man, oh, God Almighty. All right, all right. Now, next question. In your opinion, what is the most overrated kaiju score? Where's the score that you see a lot of people talk about is the greatest in the world, but for some reason you don't really get the hype behind it? If you want me to answer first, just to kind of give you a little reprieve, I can do that. If
Actually,
not,
yeah, that would be great because I have a
oh,
few in my head, but
okay. First of all, let me say to Eric Stope, he's in the chat. Welcome, Eric.
what's up, Eric?
Hope you and Adrian have a great show later on with the Monsterverse. We will be watching. But most overrated kaiju score. And I know this is not going to sit well with the woman that's downstairs below me right now. But
Oh boy, oh boy. Yeah, lock the door after you.
oh God, I might as well get a pillow and a blanket because she can make me sleep up here.
Maybe you can sleep with the toys. Yeah.
Yeah, GMK. I'm sorry. I just I love the movie. Don't get me wrong. I love the movie. I think it's the best movie from the Millennium series. It's my wife's favorite movie. But the one thing I've always really thought was kind of lackluster was the score. And honestly, this may get me some more heat with some more people. But again, the same person who did GMK did the Gamera Heisei films.
Yeah.
And as much as I love the Gamera Heisei films, and I think they are light years better in terms of quality, visual wise, compared to the Godzilla films, Godzilla Heisei films. But I find the music in the Gamera Heisei films kind of like GMK, very, very lackluster. Like I only know of one thing that I can remember off the top of my head, and that's Gamera's theme. Da 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 da. But I don't remember the theme from Iris. I don't remember the theme of Legion. I don't remember the theme of the Heisei Gauss. It's just not memorable to me. Kind of like GMK. Like the only thing that's memorable for GMK for me is of course Godzilla's theme. Da 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 da. And of course my wife sings it every now and then. But I have to say that, and people say, yeah, the score is great. GMK is great, and it is great. But for me, the score just it doesn't land. So again, I'm sorry if that ticks off some people. And again, I'll be sleeping next to him tonight because I know Sandra is gonna ban me from coming downstairs at this point. So
he will protect you.
yes. So that's me. GMK, I find it to be very, very overrated. What about you?
That's honestly, I'm not going to disagree, and that won't be mine. But I'm not going to disagree with you. I love GMK as a film, and I love the designs. I love everything, the direction, everything about that movie is really great. I just don't listen to the music often, and I've heard it. It underwhelmed me a little bit, only because obviously we had seen the Gamera Heisei trilogy before, and I actually really love the Gamera Heisei trilogy scores, mainly the first one, and there's parts of the second one. The third one's really good too, but it's a little more muted and not as memorable for me. But those first two were so good to me that once I heard GMK, I was like, oh, this score is going to be popping. It's going to slap, right? Not really. It just it has a sort of jazziness to it. That
Yeah.
And it also has a synthy quality to it, which I'm not against synth when it's used appropriately, in my opinion. But he did go with a more synthesized score with that. And I loved his more epic orchestral takes, like the Gamera Heisei trilogy. He pepper and synth here and there, but also, Ko Otani, who's a composer, he comes from the anime world originally, like before he did all his other
Oh, really?
Gamera and all
Okay.
that. He came from anime, so he did some anime like Outlaw Star, if you're familiar with that, or he did Gundam Wing and some others. Very similar style, like very anime centric score for a lot of those movies. But yeah, I agree with you on that one. That is something I will not fight you on. GMK, yeah, definitely a little overrated. I would say for me, and I know this might get some heat, but
Oh
I don't
boy.
know. So Takayuki Hattori, right, who did Godzilla versus Space Godzilla. I'm not against that score, but I think that his score to Godzilla 2000 Millennium is a little underwhelming for
Yeah.
me. I like the main theme a lot, and that's the only thing I'll listen to. And there's another theme like when the military is prepping, and there's a couple other cues in there that I do listen to often. But as a score as a whole in the movie, it just doesn't land for me. Like it's Godzilla's return, right, in the 2000s after we saw 98, and it just didn't do anything for me really. And the only theme I will say I like from Space Godzilla is his 94 theme. It was oddly catchy for me when I first saw it, but the score wasn't really like my thing. It's definitely more Ifukube. Like that's where I land a lot of the time. And I do love Masaru Sato, but he's of it's a different time, a different style. I like jazz, I like big band. But yeah, I don't know. Just Takayuki Hattori, and he did the anime trilogy. Not wild about those scores either. I mean, the Ghidorah one, when Ghidorah comes in, when Ghidorah is introduced, that is a really cool piece. But yeah, Godzilla 2000 Millennium, it's okay.
I agree with Space Godzilla. To me, the problem with Space Godzilla, I mean, aside from the many other problems that film has,
the battle goes on for like 50 minutes or 40 minutes or something like that.
Actually, you know what? The battle doesn't really bother me. I mean, the battle, seeing, Space Godzilla being such a powerful opponent that Godzilla actually needs help to defeat him. At first, I didn't appreciate that. But then as time goes on, I was like, you know what? That kind of gives Space Godzilla a lot of credibility.
No, yeah.
Too bad Destroyer didn't have that same credibility. But that's another story for another time. But for me, for me, Space Godzilla is like, the music doesn't match the visuals that's on screen. It's like when you hear that music, it should be taken. You would think it was taken from a different movie. It doesn't match up. It doesn't match up with the story. It doesn't match up with the visuals, in my opinion. And it's just, again, it's lackluster. It's just lackluster to me.
Honestly,
but
the best piece. I don't mean to cut you off, but you just reminded me of something. The best piece from that score and from that movie, I think, is the very end. It's the epilogue it's like the epilogue love theme.
Yeah,
and it plays for like 10 minutes or something. It wasn't even scored by Takayuki Hattori. It was some other guy. And I'm blanking on the name, but I'm like, if that's the best piece at a movie that doesn't really seem memorable to me. I mean, his 94 theme is okay, but it gets in my head every once in a while, like dun 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 dun. Dun. It's like, yeah, let's go. But other than that, I agree. Yeah, it's
But also,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. But I also think there's a disconnect. Because remember, prior to 94, we had, they brought back Ifukube with King Ghidorah, Mothra, and Mechagodzilla. So, you get the more darker apocalyptic score from 84. They kind of lighten it up with Biollante.
Yeah.
Then when they brought back the old Showa foes, of course, it's remastered Ifukube music, but it's the iconic Ifukube music that we remember from the Showa period.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you get the Space Godzilla, and when you really sit down and think about it, that technically could be a Showa film, considering was all the off the wall stuff that's going on with Space Godzilla. Miki Sagusa doing telekinesis, Godzilla getting a Minya,
the mafia side plot.
Yeah, so that could be considered a Showa type of story if you read it on paper. So, in my opinion, if there was a score that Ifukube needed to do, it would have been Space Godzilla, but he didn't. But
I can understand why he turned it down a little bit.
Yeah, I can understand too. But thank God he came back for the next one, and we'll talk about that later.
Yes.
All right, next question. Since we kind of like, I'm sure we drew some ire from fans, and I know that I drew
Oh,
some ire with the person downstairs. So let's try and get back on
I'm
track,
looking
okay?
away from the chat. I'm looking away from the
Uh,
chat.
actually, the chat it has
Great
been really,
team.
really good.
I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah,
kidding. I'm just kidding.
yeah, yeah. They weren't brutal like they were in March when David was talking about my
Ah,
guy. Again.
my brother, 84. See my brother, his favorite Godzilla movie is 84, 85.
Okay, which one's like better, 84, 85? Our
I think
friendship,
85.
our potential
85.
friendship. Okay, good. We're gonna be
85.
friends
Because
now.
and I do agree with this. This is a little sidetrack, but before we move on, but the reason is because we've talked about this before in the chats. 85, I think, has a really great they did a good job of piecing it to make kind of they condensed it a little bit. There's some great moments that you miss of the tone and the themes and the story with 84. You miss some of the stuff I like is the prime minister, all those talks when he's like debating like what to do, and you really see like the confusion and the sort of like he's conflicted, right? He's really conflicted with telling people and not telling people and what are they going to do about this situation. You kind of lose that in 85. But what 85 does is it condenses everything and brings it into a nice little package. I think that is, if you're going to cut a movie down, right? That's probably the best way to do it, honestly. Like
Yeah.
they did it. They did a pretty decent. I mean, I'm not going to talk about the themes with like the Soviet Union stuff that they flip flopped and all that stuff. But in general, yeah, I agree. Anyway, that's another thing for
Well,
another
it's
time.
cool. It's cool. I'm so glad he chose 85 because again, everybody knows that 84 is it's like dry sandpaper to me. It is dull. It is boring. It is
Dry sandpaper.
yeah. I mean,
Nobody likes dry sandpaper.
say what you will about 85. You know, the comedy. You know, the Dr. Pepper references every 5 seconds. And I understand all that, but at the same time, I watched the Japanese version some years ago, and for me, it's just boring. The pacing sucks, and it's just amazing that 84, 85, they're technically the same movie, but the way they present it is like it's two completely different movies, and between the two I prefer 85. So your brother is good in my book. All right,
See,
next
you hear
question.
that, Jason?
Huh?
I was like, you
Say
hear
what?
that, Jason? You hear that,
Yeah.
Jay?
Yeah, you're good. I'm not gonna clown you on Facebook. Okay. All right, next question.
Yes.
What are your top 3 favorite themes of Godzilla himself?
Oh, okay. Fairly easy question. They're not in any particular order, really, but obviously, Godzilla emerged. We're talking about Godzilla strictly, right? Okay.
Yes,
Godzilla emergence from '64. I love that theme.
I
Uh,
agree.
and then we have. Oh, I said that, and then the wheels start turning in the head.
But
Oh,
there's plenty to choose
uh,
from. There's plenty to choose from.
there really are. Michiru Oshima's score, her main title for in Mechagearus, that da 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 da, like that. Hearing that, like the drums, the snare kick in, and it's like the march, but it's like this, like he's like pounding through, like he's coming. It's like a wrestling theme, like he's coming in to like mess stuff up. I love that progression. And then I gotta go with Terra Mechagodzilla, and which also led to, it's technically the JSDF Army March from the original, but he used it as Godzilla's theme. He slowed it down a little bit and made it a little more heroic instead of more frantic and chaotic. It's that da na na da na na da na 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 na.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the way that he's presented from the shadow coming in, and he roars. But then you hear it again in the 90s a bunch. And I just, man, yeah, 64. I'm not gonna say Mechagearus. I just, it's like 2000, because then you get it again in Mechagodzilla, in Kiryu Saga, you get that again. But so it's that one, and the Michiru Oshima one, the Ifukube 64 one, and the Terra Mechagodzilla Godzilla main title or whatever. Godzilla's theme.
You know what's so funny?
Hmm.
Those are the exact same ones that I was going to choose. No lie. Absolutely.
When I said Michiru Oshima's Godzilla theme, I think it's literally called Fatal Confrontation, right? I think that's the track name of it, or the faith. It's
Yes,
either Faithful Confrontation, I think, or something like that. And I saw your face, and you're like, oh, and I thought for a second, I was like, oh, does he like that one? I don't know.
that's the thing. I do. Every single answer that you just gave to that answer is the exact same one I was going to make,
Oh,
and I agree. I mean, of course, Oshima, she did use that theme in, Mega Garrus and the Kiryu films. But to me, I think the best version was Mega Garrus.
absolutely.
Hands down.
Yep.
Hands down. So, and again, that movie doesn't get talked about that much, which is unfortunate. But at the same time, I'm really amazed. That's why I got the look on my face, because I did not expect you to name the exact same themes that I was going to make. 64, when he rises up out of the ground, the emergent scene, his heroic theme from Terror, and of course his theme from Mega Garrus. Oh God, woo, that's
Heavy
cool.
hitters. And
Absolutely.
if I could say honorable mention, I would say 84, 85, because that, when we first see that with the 85 did a really good job with the letters burning, or at the title burning in the beginning, and you hear that na na dun, 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 dun,
Yeah, that's
dun.
right.
I that was like mind blowing to me. I was like, what is this? Like, I
Yeah,
was just scared. And they kind of riff on it throughout the movie. Like, does different cue versions of it, but like the scene when like he knocks the building on the Super X, and then he's just staring at them. It's like,
yeah,
he's just staring
yeah.
at, and he's like roaring, and I'm like, either he has a really bad case of indigestion, or he's gonna lay a really big fart, or he's about to go mess them up. Either one of the three, probably gonna go mess them up. Yeah, I mean, I apologize if that was lowbrow to anybody, but
Oh no, that's awesome. I'm just still amazed that we're so far we have gotten not just one thing but several things that we actually agree upon, and we didn't,
singers.
and I didn't know prior to us doing this that we were going to have pretty much the same type of lights. Me and David Dopko kind of like had the same thing going on when we started doing shows together, and we found out that we kind of have like similar interests in terms of what we like in terms of movies, scores, characters, whatever. And it's nice to see that. It really is nice to see that.
Absolutely.
All right, next question.
Whew.
In your opinion, what is the most underrated kaiju score? What kaiju score do you feel does not get enough love, but it should?
Mm. I'm going to go with a Showa era movie here.
Mm-hmm.
It's between two, really. I mean, they both come consecutively after each other. I
Right.
think you'll know which ones I'm going to say. There's there's Godzilla versus the Sea Monster, Ebirah, Horror of the Deep, and then Son of Godzilla. I think those two scores, and I don't want to cheat by saying two, but since they come right after each other and it's the same composer, and they're vastly different scores sounding too. Like, he has a similar tone and style he goes for, but like when I hear that main title, with like, in Son of Godzilla, where they're all running around doing their part to get the weather machine up and running, like that
Absolutely.
march, that music, it's just so like, I bob my feet to it, man. I'm in the car, I'm bobbing my head to it.
Yeah.
It's so jazzy. It's so like, we're on the mission. We're about to do this. It's very emotional in that way. And it makes you fall in love with those characters instantly. That hearing that music, and the characters are great enough as actors, but just hearing that music and seeing them all doing their thing, and the Kamakuris theme, right? That dun 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 dun, like
Yeah.
in Ebirah, like it's got a very James Bondy sort of quality to it,
Absolutely.
in the tone.
Yeah.
And those two scores, I think, don't get enough love, and it might
I
be
agree.
because of Masaru Sato. Like, he's different tastes, different strokes for different folks, and I understand that, but a lot of people might be lean heavily towards Akira Ifukube because he's so much more renowned, and you're more familiar with his sound. And then there's just Masaru Sato here in the corner, who did, 3, namely, and then did Raids Again, which not a lot of people probably, I mean, they probably know,
Yeah.
but his Raids Again score is very different than his in the early, like in the early to mid to late 50s. Fumioki. I don't Fumio Hayasaki or Hayasawa. I'm butchering his name. He was the guy who did The Seven Samurai. Masaru
Okay.
Sato studied under him, and he brought him under his wing, and he scored some tracks on Seven Samurai, or helped him score some tracks. So when Fumio passed away tragically a year or two later, Masaru Sato became Akira Kurosawa's main composer. He would compose for. So um, his style kind of like was a little more traditional. That's why Raids Again doesn't have that sort of jazzy. But once he got into the 60s, he was all about experimentation and
Right. Yeah.
trying new instruments and trying new sounds and styles. And that's what I love about him. He always kind of did something different for each movie. Like, they all have a similar quality, but very different scores. Like, not one sounds exactly like the other. It's really interesting. But yeah, I'd say those two for sure for me. What
And
about you?
I think there is a disconnect with those films. Um, I think a lot of people don't really like them, or at least they don't really talk about them or give them enough credit. Is because they're not done by Fukube. But I think that the scores work for, especially for the setting, because Godzilla at this point, he's on an island setting. It's not like there are huge stakes like they were before. It's not like the world is being threatened or Japan is going to be destroyed no matter what. Here, they're like self-contained adventure stories, and it's more so of a
Yeah.
laid-back type of feel. So it didn't need the bombastic epicness of an Ifukube score, in my opinion, at least for those particular stories. So I think it worked for their particular stories. Now, underrated for me, I'm going to go back what you just said earlier. I think a lot of people need to really give 85 credit or give 85 more love. Because again, like you said, when I first heard that music for the first time. Now, mind you, I saw 85 early on in my Godzilla fandom when I was starting to get to know more about him and figuring out, oh wow, there's more movies of this guy out there. And I got exposed to different versions of Godzilla all within a short time frame. King Kong versus Godzilla, Monster Zero, Son of Godzilla, Gigan, Mecha Godzilla, the original Godzilla, and then Godzilla 1985. And when I played 1985, and of course, this is me after watching Megalon and Gigan, I'm thinking I'm going to hear something like, something jovial or whimsical or whatever. But just that opening note, like boom, boom, I'm like, wait a minute.
Yes.
Wait a minute now. And then, then when you hear Godzilla's roar, that dark, visceral roar that they use for the first three Heisei movies.
Ooh.
And then as time goes on in the movie, where pretty much every time you see Godzilla, it's in a darkened environment. Whether he attacks a sub in the middle of the ocean, it's a darkened environment. You don't really see him when he attacks Japan or the nuclear power plant. Is at night during dusk, during the fog. When he comes back to the attack Tokyo later on, it's at night. So the score actually makes the film a lot more frightening, quite frankly.
Absolutely.
And again, like I mentioned earlier with the whole Jaws thing, I think 85 score had a lot. His half the reason why that film is such a great dark film. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, I think that a lot of people really need to give 85 some love. You know what? It's kind of funny because I don't know if it's a fandom thing, but it just seems like that nobody really wants to talk about how good 85 and 84 really was. I think a lot of people, they're more fascinated with Godzilla fighting other monsters, fighting aliens. But we have singular Godzilla stories like 84 and Shin, and I mean outside the original, because the original is like on another level. But it seems like Godzilla 85 is like one of those films in terms of story, in terms of music, that really I don't think gets a lot of love as it should. But that's just my opinion. How do you feel about that?
I agree 100%. I mean, I, like you, saw 85 when I was young. Like, we're talking, I saw Destroy All Monsters, and then I was shown Mothra versus Godzilla. My uncle did a really good job of like kind of showing me. He got me kind of like whetted the appetite. And then I went on my own journey. And 85, right? My mom like taped it on TV for me. She's like, "Oh, this is Godzilla movie. It's going to be on TBS at this time or whatever, Saturday night or whatever." So I watched it, and I'm just like, this movie has such a dark, brooding, sort of tonally 80s, very self-contained sort of score that you haven't heard and you will never hear again. That sound, all that music, you're never going to hear anything like that again. You might hear Akira Ifukube's music come in and creep into a movie that he's not even related to, because it's the safer bet. people people like familiarity, and that's not a bad thing. But
That's true. Yeah.
when you come to they really stepped out of the box, and they did offer Ifukube to come back and score 84, and he declined. So Rajiro Kuroku, he didn't try to do anything what Ifukube did. He did his own thing, what his idea of Godzilla was, and I thought it was perfectly matched with the movie.
It
And
was.
it
It
elicited so
was.
many responses. I will listen to that score, and in my head, it just sparks that twinge in your mind. Like it just sends like good vibes through my body. I'm just like, I freaking love this music. Even like the little cues throughout the film, like when he goes to Professor Hayashida's lab, that little whimsical,
Yeah. Yeah.
na, na,
Yeah.
na,
Yeah.
na,
Yeah.
just stuff like that. Like it's all mind-blowingly great, and I kind of wish that man was offered to do another one, but and then again, it probably wouldn't have worked tonally because
Yeah.
they veered a lot in Godzilla versus Biollante. They went completely different with that one, and so
And it got real
so
different in '91.
real different 91 then. So talk about tonally, it was perfectly matched for that movie, very self-contained for that era. And that's why I think I love it so much. It's got it knows what it is, and it's got this style that will never be duplicated. You won't see a Godzilla movie like 84 ever again. Ever again. Like that sort of style.
Yeah,
It
that's
won't be
true.
matched.
And the thing about it is that the movie was designed to bring Godzilla back to his villainous nuclear holocaustic roots. Because
Yeah.
it was, because we all know it was decided when they decided to bring Godzilla back, they were going to ignore every other entry outside of the original. And so they wanted to get people's minds off of what they thought Godzilla was at the time, which was a goofy tail dragging dropkick superhero. So what do? You bring forth a really dark apocalyptic movie, and the music has to match that. Again, when I watched 85 for the first time, I really was like, it took me a minute because I was like, wait a minute, this is not the Godzilla I was expecting. But you know what? That was the whole point of why they did that in the first place. So I understand why they did it. And again, it's a score that I think a lot of people really need to go back to and really deserves a lot more credit than it gets.
Amen.
All right. Next question. Okay. We're going back into the fire for this one. Now, of course,
Right,
we all love Ifukube. And we all love his music, we all love his scores, whatever. But if Akube wasn't perfect, he is no different than, let's say, Yuji Sakai or anybody else that's revered as one of the best to ever do it in their particular craft. But even they have an off day. So, in your opinion, what is your least favorite Ifukube Kaiju score? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Golly. You know, that is a really tough question. I'm thinking about all of them in my head, and
I can tell
I'm
you
going
mine.
through the list. Yeah, please. I'm really curious.
Okay. And again, I love Ifukube. He is my favorite composer when it comes to Godzilla. But honestly, I thought the original Japanese score to King Kong versus Godzilla is lackluster. I'm sorry. It's like and I get what he was trying to do. Again, he perfected a lot of what he tried to do in Mothra versus Godzilla, but the music in the Japanese version of King Kong versus Godzilla, outside of the main theme, outside of aside from that theme, the rest of the music I find very, very lackluster, not memorable. That's why I rarely go back to the Japanese version of King Kong versus Godzilla. Of course, I got it in my Criterion collection, but again, I will go back to the American version. Even though they use stock footage from, I guess, Creature from the Black Lagoon or whatever. But for me, the music in the American version is better. And this is a time where I would actually prefer American stock music over Ifukube. Again, I'm sure that may draw some heat, but I find the Japanese soundtrack to King Kong versus Godzilla just not that memorable to me. That's just me.
Okay. You sparked something in my head now. As soon as you said that, like I immediately, like the light bulb went off in my head. So my least favorite, it has to be. This movie has multiple titles. I'm just gonna go with the Japanese title, not to be confused with the one that's my favorite, Godzilla versus Mothra,
Ooh,
1992.
really? Okay.
Godzilla and Mothra, the battle for Earth. That one. Now the movie's not terrible. It's not the movie really. The music, while I love Ifukube and I love when he brought back all those famous themes, there's something about what he did with Mothra that I think he hit it so well with Mothra versus Godzilla. It has such a different feel to it. Now, when he did the same thing in Godzilla versus Mothra, to me, it doesn't punch the same. It doesn't have the same emotional pull for me. Like it's a little more poppy, actually. Like
Yeah.
maybe it's because of the Peanuts, because their voices are just heavenly beautiful. Like their sound is so soft and so clear and very sympathetic. We fall in love with the Peanuts. Like we feel for them. They elicit this a terribly emotional response, and we feel their pain. I don't feel, and it's maybe because of Honda. That has a lot to do with Honda in the way he
Yeah.
in his direction.
Yeah.
But I don't get the same thing with Godzilla versus Mothra. I get a kind of a lot of the same. The stuff that I would normally like, I get a lot of the same stuff. And Batra's theme is cool. I like Batra's theme. I like when Godzilla. It's like the kind of theme that they play throughout when Godzilla is fighting Mothra. He fights him in the ocean, the larval version for the first time. That
Yeah.
that's a really good piece, and I do listen to that one often. But as a whole, not really a fan of the music as a whole. I don't go back and listen to that score a lot. Like I'll
I
listen
feel
to
like
only certain cues, but and then like the Mothra, like the Sacred Springs, doesn't elicit the same thing for me that it does in Mothra versus Godzilla. It just, I don't know, something about it, man, just doesn't
to
hit.
me to me it's like a step down from 91 in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say that too, because 91, while it does bring back some iconic themes, it does do a lot of things a little differently in a way. Like he lowers the tempo, he does the Destroy All Monsters March, but he makes it a little more darker and not as heroic. There's a little more tonally darker moments in it. I'm not quite sure how to really, without saying what I've already said, I don't want to be a retread, but
Yeah.
Godzilla
It's all
versus
good.
Mothra doesn't match that same tone for me. It just kind of it lightens it up a little bit. When I thought it
Right.
should have been a little more darker and sympathetic, it just kind of does the same. And the movie takes this kind of a similar path to the original Mothra too, right? Like the twins are captured and Mothra comes in to save the day, essentially to get them, and lays Japan to waste essentially in the process. And that's what just the whole thing is, I don't know, but I'm going to stop there. I don't want to, and I apologize to anybody who feels
No,
differently,
no,
but yeah.
you're fine. And again, I've always asked my guests, or whenever I do shows or streams with people, I've always asked, be brutally honest, because it's the internet, and more likely, whatever you're gonna say, it's not gonna sit well with every single person. So, I might as well go ahead head first in it.
Oh boy.
But it's all good. And Joey Chapman in the chat said Godzilla versus Mothra gets so much undeserved hate. That's the thing. I
It's not
don't
hate
hate.
really.
I
Yeah.
don't hate 92. I never hated 92. But if you would have asked me, do I find it highly entertaining? I would tell you no. I mean, there are some good things about it.
Yes.
Like I would say that the updated Mothra song, I love that. I actually love that, and I think it kind of rivals the original just a little bit. I love the more modern '90s tone, or at least the way the modern '90s take of the Mothra song. I love that. I mean, I love Batra. Batra was a cool monster, but the film, again, and I said this many times before, the reason why I have a disconnect with 92 is that the film feels more like a Mothra film instead of a Godzilla film, despite the fact Godzilla's in the title. Because when you sit down and think about it, the movie more so centers around Mothra. And Godzilla is kind of like only shoehorned in as like the really, really bad guy until like the very, 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 very end. Because in the middle, you don't know who really is the bigger bad guy, Batra or Godzilla. It's just like that kind of like wishy-washy type of storytelling, because you don't know who to root for. Since the premise of the Heisei series was for Godzilla to be the bad guy, now you introduce Batra and you don't know who you're going to go for. But I do find it very ironic that when you look at Mothra versus Godzilla and Godzilla versus Mothra, I just came across this realization recently that in Mothra versus Godzilla, even though Mothra takes top billing, you would think that Mothra would have been the star of the film, but she's really not. In the
Yeah.
original, Godzilla is the star. But when you think about it, in '92, even though Godzilla takes top billing in '92, Mothra is more so the star instead of Godzilla. So it's
Yeah,
kind
that's
of
an
like a
interesting
reverse,
point,
right?
actually.
You
Oh,
know what
yeah,
I
that's
mean?
really interesting. Yeah, because they in Mothra vs. Godzilla, they pepper Godzilla in all the time. Like, oh, we're back to him here. Oh, he's here now. Oh, he's here. He's like on a journey, right? He's traveling to the egg, and they kind of go back and forth. But really, it's Godzilla we see more of. And then you're so right. Godzilla versus Mothra, he doesn't show up until he comes out of the volcano. I mean, he comes out of the volcano later, but like when he, it's like halfway through before we see him pop out of the water and fight the Mothra larvae. So
Yeah, but even
um,
though, like I said, even though Mothra takes top billing in the original, she's not the star. Godzilla is, and in
yeah,
'92, the reverse happens where Godzilla takes top billing, but he's not the star. Mothra is. So it's kind of really interesting. But again, I don't hate '92. I
no,
just
yeah,
find it. I don't find it as entertaining. There's some good things about it, quite frankly. I will watch it more so than the anime trilogy, and that says a lot right
yeah.
there, quite
Uh,
frankly.
uh, Same. Yeah, I will watch it, but just not as often. And hate's a strong word. Uh, so I don't hate things. I don't hate anything in the Godzilla. Oh, there's like a couple of things, but they're not related. Um, but yeah, it's more of like a I don't prefer, or I don't.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And just because you don't prefer something Godzilla wise, even though you're a Godzilla fan, does not make you less of a Godzilla fan. I wish more Godzilla fans would get on with that program. All
hey
right.
man, people are passionate in different ways, right?
Absolutely.
Not an
Absolutely.
excuse, but
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And choose between these
All right,
two.
let's
Kind of
go.
like a
Let's go.
rapid fire type of thing.
Oh
All right.
boy.
Who had the creepier thing? Rodan from 1956 or Daimajin?
Rodan.
Rodan?
Rodan. Rodan,
Really?
I think
Okay.
Rodan. Well, Rodan for me, Rodan Rodan is coupled with like the Mega Neuron. Like there's this really
Yeah.
horrific feeling to the movie, like going down in the mine shaft like that.
Oh, I
I
wouldn't
would
do
never
that.
want to go down there.
I wouldn't
It's
have done that.
claustrophobic enough, right? Those things are pulling them under. I mean, okay, Rodan's theme, that brooding dark, it's like that. It's just like, and it's kind of like there's a similar quality like Mogera's theme, from Mysterians is kind of in the same vein. It's this low brooding, like, kind of theme, and it really elicits this horrific kind of feeling in my head. Daimajin is amazing and very imposing, very scary, but Daimajin stems from other cues for me. Like I've heard that before Daimajin, so it doesn't elicit the same feeling a little bit.
Mhm.
But Rodan was like, when I first heard that, my goodness, that
Yeah.
I mean, whew.
For me, it would be Damaging. Um, Even though I enjoy Rodan's theme from the original, and it is ominous, you know. But Damaging, just I don't know. Since I seen his movies and just hearing that music, him just staring there, him
uh,
just standing there, just staring at you,
those
is like,
eyes, yeah,
oh God,
piercing.
it's creepy. It is
Whew.
creepy. Man, I wish Damaging was real. I would send him after some people right now.
Remember the moment? I know, right? Oh, so many. There's this moment where he like, remember he's like, they're there and he kind of like, does this with his eyes. He just looks down. He doesn't turn his head really.
Yeah,
Just I was like, oh, don't do that. Don't look. I'd rather you just look down at me like he's like giving that really creepy side eye. Like,
yeah.
whoa, don't
Or in
hurt
the
me.
first one, where he's trying to get the head bad guy, and he's hiding in different rooms in the house, and everywhere he turns around, he sees Damage's hand coming for him, and then it should show a close up of his eyes, and Damage's like, I'm like, dude,
Oh
stop doing
God,
that
yeah.
for real. Stop doing that for real. Don't do that anymore.
Now I will challenge you to do this, or anyone to do this. Go back and listen to the Rodan main title, and I believe right off the top of my head, it's the the actual score itself, you can find it on iTunes, you can find it on Spotify, or, um, when you go to that main title track, listen to there's a bonus track of it. It's like main title with Rodan's cries or Rodan cries,
Hmm.
and it plays the Rodan screech, like his screeching roar, peppered throughout different hits of the main title. That is like horrifying to hear, like just alone
Absolutely.
without
Yeah.
seeing images.
Yeah.
I listened to it like one time and I was just like, I didn't expect the roar to come up, and it was just like hearing the score, right, and then all of a sudden I hear, I was like,
Yeah.
what? Okay, wow, I didn't expect that. I did not
Yeah.
expect that.
And the fact you don't see Rodan until like, midway through, because you think that the bugs are like the main villain. So that was so cool about
Yeah,
Toho. The fact that they gave you a monster movie before, a different monster movie within the main monster movie before the real villain shows up. So I thought that was really, really clever on their
yeah.
part. Because
And the
again, you think,
amnesia story, oh, like he
yo,
can't
yeah,
remember anything, but then he jolts his memory in the most horrific way. He's like, "Oh, I remember now, but I never want to remember that ever again."
yeah, like and what he goes through to just him getting random images pop up in his mind that
Oh,
in the process brings his memory back, and then everything gets put together, and it's like, wow, that's
mhm.
so cool. All right, next question. In your opinion, which
Okay.
version of Super X had the best theme? One, two, or three?
2.
My man, I agree. I
Honestly,
agree.
man, hearing that theme, right, in the most heroic way. I love 84's, but it has this very, like, I don't wanna say I don't wanna get in trouble and say basic heroic kind of theme, but it has this very syncopated, very repeatable cue that,
Yeah.
dun, da, da, dun, da, da. It doesn't really deviate much. With 2, you get different versions of 2. You get like a
Hmm.
cue that starts it, and then you get like I like things that have chord progression. I like things that build.
Oh, okay, I
And that's
got you.
so in terms of music, I like it when things build. It doesn't have to, it can repeat, but it has to build to a climax, right? And
Yeah,
that's what you get with the Super X2. With Ifukube's Super X3, you get a great march, right? You get a great song, but it's really just that first, it's the first progression, the third progression, or the first, second, third progression, and then it repeats. For
absolutely.
Super X2, you get this sort of beginning moment with the trills, the sort of fantastical sort of da, 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 and then it goes in this whimsical like, and then it just builds from there.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
it ends with that, da, da, and they use it at the end title too. Like
Yeah, it's embedded in the main
it is
title.
so. I mean, I know
Yeah.
Christine will appreciate
Yes.
this call out because that's her favorite Godzilla.
Yeah.
But yeah, that Super X2 theme, so good.
I agree. Super X2, then Super X1, and I barely remember Super X3. That's how memorable Super X3 is to me. All right. Next question. Now we're going to the Gamera side of things. What is your favorite
Yes.
Gamera score or soundtrack?
I had one that popped in my head and I said, "Oh no, but wait, there's this one."
Yeah.
Okay. I love the original movie, right? And I love this score for that. But uh Gamer versus Gaius, 1967.
Ooh, okay.
Gamer versus Gaius is uh again, I saw those movies very young as well. In the middle of my Godzilla adventure, my uncle was like, threw me a curveball and said, "Hey, you like Godzilla? Watch this giant turtle." So those movies kind of like, I got obviously the original, and then Baragon. Baragon was terrifying. But then Gaius is like this crazy vampire-ish, like uh, kaiju bat that I would never want to encounter, and even from like 100 miles away, just like, nope, don't want to have anything to do with you. The music to that, when he goes flying through the city and wrecking it, and you hear that, it's like that really, there's a lot of
Da da
weight and
da da
heaviness to it.
da da da
It's
da
like,
da 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 da. Yeah.
yeah, and then it's like da 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 da
Da
da
da yeah
da
da yeah.
da da.
Da
It's like
da
this really
da.
messed up carnival. It's a really kind of a messed up dark carnival like sound, and I love that so much, and that's probably what hits it over the top for me. And it's really and while it's got the kid element, right? Because Gamer had this odd tone where they were kid friendly in a way. Like Gamer was sympathetic to kids, but then there was like blood and guts and like violence, and you got the creepiness of these monsters as well. A really off kilter tone to them. That one, if I were to pick another one, like it would have to be Gamera Guardian of the Universe, because I do love Ko Otani a lot. But
Yeah.
no, the original, and I do not remember the composer's name, who did a lot of the Showa era Gamera movies. At least what the heavy hitters was, Gamera versus Gauss, 1967.
For me, and you know what, I agree with you with Gauss about that score being so epic, and especially even Gauss himself. He was such a cool villain, very underrated in my opinion. It is something about a monster that only comes out at night. It was something about that really scared me, because even like you said, he's a giant
Absolutely.
bat, but the fact that he only comes out at night and he actually feasts on human blood and human flesh, kind of like Gyra the year before. But again,
Yeah.
it's something about a nocturnal beast that only comes out at night to do his damage. It's very menacing for a kaiju to appear at any time, whether it's daytime or night. But it's like those people, you really felt for them. It's like they just prayed that the night never came, because they knew once nightfall came, then more likely he was going to come. So I thought Gauss, again, the Showa Gauss, not Space Gauss. I ain't talking about that crap. The first Gauss, very, very underrated. Yes, very underrated. But I'm gonna go with the Gamera film that came a year before yours. I'm going with Barugon. I think that is an amazing, amazing score, especially the fight scene music in the middle of the film where Gamera finally shows up and confronts Barugon in Osaka. That music I like. Da 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 da. Da, 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 da. That's another one that Sandra sings every now and then. I just love that. Honorable mention, and I know I may get some heat for this, but then again, I got heat with the King Kong versus Godzilla and the GMK. So what's more heat? Not going to hurt anybody.
Hey man, bring it up, bring it in. Let's do it.
Honorable mention. I know the movie sucks. It really does, but I actually love the music.
I think I know what you're gonna say.
To Gamera Super Monster.
I knew it. I was thinking it in my head, and you're right. The music is like really good. Like it's got some weird, like kind of oddly attractive moments to it that are really fun. And dude, blew my mind.
It was funky. It was late 70s type of, even though the film was made in 1980, but it still has that funky 70s type of, guitar riffs, whatever that you associate with music at the time. And again, I know Gamera Super Monster is regarded as the worst Gamera film for obvious reason, because it is a clip show, and it was made very lazily, whatever, but for me, the music actually makes the film more bearable. It makes you kind of forget about the fact that you're all watching stock footage. And again, for people who jump on stock footage, again, I don't mind the stock footage. I understand that at the time they didn't have a big budget to make absolutely new monster scenes. The same thing can be applied to Godzilla. Godzilla's Revenge, Gigan, Megalon, whatever. But again, the music in Super Monster kind of makes up for the fact that we are seeing basically a clip show. All right. That's it. All right. Got a few more questions and then we'll be out of here. Let's see. Next question. In your opinion, which oh my God, even I'm gonna have trouble with this one. In your opinion, which theme of which piece of music was more sad? The ending to Godzilla 1985 when he falls into the volcano, or Godzilla's death music from Destroyer? Which one is more sad or sadder in your opinion? Because they're both sad. They're both depressing. They're both depressing.
I'm going with this answer only because of, again, a lot of this stuff stems from when I experienced it when I was a kid. And like,
absolutely,
those moments really affect me and remind me of the future, of like, it still comes back and elicits the same response. While I think that the Requiem track from Godzilla vs. Destroyer is really sad and it gets me emotional for sure. I have to go with my personal choice and say that 84, 85's Death.
Oh,
The volcano, you know, because the thing about that one is when I was young and I saw that, and I literally thought that that was it. I was like, he died. Like,
me
okay, well,
too.
so I cried like a little. I cried like, I mean, like literally like a baby because I was a kid, but I still get emotional listening to it. Like I listened to it when I was cleaning an apartment like a while back, and I kind of stopped when I was just listening to it. And I was like, I was welling up a little bit. I was like, man, there's something about this. It's very dark and upsetting. It's kind of like you see it on their faces. They're like, well, we kind of just like led this dude to his death. Like maybe we didn't need, I mean, they needed to do it. They, you know, right. But then they're kind of like, oh, well, did we
Should we
need
have
to
done
go
something
that
different?
far?
Yeah,
Should we have done something different? Should we just deterred him or something? They're both heartbreaking, but I just have to go with 84 because it's got that sort of, it hits to me like where, and they both hit, trust me. Like, but yeah, and Fukabe is like with the woman that's singing, you know, doing like the chorus that's coming in. Like,
yeah, yeah.
it's really sad. But I really like stuff, and this is the other thing with music. I love stuff that's more in minor key. That means minor key usually gives off a little darker of tone and sad. Like there's parts of Destroya that aren't really necessarily in minor key. They're very beautiful and sad, but it's not. It's there's like some hope towards the end when it wells. There's some like kind of hope that is peppered in there at the end when you see the glitter coming down and you see him disappear. There's a little bit of
Absolutely.
hope there. That's what Ifukube always did. He made really great music and he made sad and sorrowful music, but he also there's a line of hope in there at the end. You can sort of like cling to and try to bear to at the end. So in that way, that's why I like not like, but I get more emotional with 84, 85.
And honestly, this is another thing that we agree upon. As much as I love Requiem from Destroyer, and it's a powerful piece of music, and it's very poetic. That one of the last pieces of music that Ifukube ever did, was Godzilla's death music, because they all thought it was going to be the end,
Yeah.
which is kind of appropriate on a tragic scale. It is something about the 85 that really, even to this day, it gets to me. Now between the two scenes, I cried during one of them, and that was 85. Even and I was like you, I was a kid, and that's why I love 85 more, because with 84 he falls in the volcano, but then they played that love song at the end that kind of throws the tone out of whack. That kind of made you think,
Yeah.
well, is he coming back, or I don't know. But with 85, and then he falls in. But in the American version, in the Japanese version, he falls in, right? But in 85,
Yeah.
they added that sound effect of him screaming as he's falling in. That
High
tore me
pitch.
up. That
Mm-hmm.
told me about, because I have never, outside of him getting beaten to death by Mechagodzilla 74, rarely have we ever heard Godzilla scream like in fear, or scream like he's being pummeled to death, or he's about to die, or in fear of him dying. I have never heard outside of 74 Godzilla screaming like that. So when I heard that, I was like, oh my God. And then
Yeah.
Raymond Burr's speech at the end, you didn't really
Uh,
know what was going on. It's like I cried. Like the first time I watched it, my mom was right there, and I'm just tugging on her leg. I'm sitting on the floor watching, I'm tugging on her leg. I'm asking, like, Mom, is he dead? Is he dead? And she was like, I don't know what to tell you. And then I asked her for days on end, like, Mom, is he dead? Is he coming back? Blah, blah, blah. Then when I found out like 10 years later about Biollante, and I was like, oh, he's fine. So yeah, so for 10 years I was depressed. Um, but Destroyer, as many times I watched that film and I enjoyed, the music, and it's heartbreaking to see Godzilla just melt away like that. I have never cried during that scene. It's disturbing to watch. I will admit that, but I have never. Kind of a lot of G fans have cried during that moment, and honestly, you're not wrong for
Understandably
doing that.
so. Yeah.
Understandably so,
Absolutely.
you're not wrong for doing that. But for me, it didn't really hit me.
You know,
I mean, it hit me, but at the same time, it didn't hit me as hard as 85 did. So that's why I'm with you. I choose 85
Yeah.
over, because honestly, at the end of 85, because you don't really know what happened. At least with Destroyer, you know, even though Godzilla dies, Godzilla Jr. is going to take his place. So it does kind of end on the high note. But with 85, you really don't know what happened. You're really convinced, especially in 85 when he screams, you really think that Godzilla is dead or he's going to be dead.
Like
So
fearing
to
for his
me,
life, like actually
yes,
fearing for his life at that moment. Like, oh, I'm done. Like
yeah.
that's it.
So 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 again, if you feel, because a lot of people in the chat were saying destroy, you're not wrong for that. We're not saying
Definitely
you're
not
wrong for
wrong.
that,
Yeah.
but for us, and I think it comes down to the fan, what you grew up with, what you were exposed to, when you watch a certain film, you know, whatever. Because because David has have said this many times before. The reason why he doesn't hold Gigan up that well, because you know he saw Gigan like later on in life. You know what I mean? Kind of like the same way I saw 84 later on in life. If I would have saw this growing up, I probably would have it on like higher up on my list too. So again, it just depends on the person, on the fan, and all that good stuff. But again, yeah, that 85, even to this day, I'm hearing it right now. It's just seeing the visual of Godzilla just screaming, or he's roaring, and he's descending down, then he trips over and falls, and he screams. I'm like, oh god,
The fact
that
that
tore me
you
up.
the fact that you see that shot, that's like the profile, and you see his head just disappearing below the horizon of the volcano, like the top of it. And
Yeah,
just the way everything, the cinematography, the way they shoot it slow motion over the top. And yeah, I mean, the thing that I love about this fandom, and you pointed it out just now, is that such great conversation can be had by anybody because nobody's really wrong. I mean, everyone can love in something or not like something, and they're totally valid. They're totally their opinion is valid. It's like whatever, we may differ in our thoughts, but
absolutely,
we all love this stuff it wholly together, and that's what's fun. It elicits great debate, which is
absolutely,
always fun. Which is what we're doing right now, which is really fun.
absolutely.
I love it.
All right, next question.
Whew.
What piece of kaiju music or theme that you liked when you first watched it, but now you don't really particularly care for, or vice versa? There's a piece of kaiju music that you watched or at least heard for the first time, and you didn't really like it, but now you do. Is there a piece of music that falls into one of those categories?
Yeah, actually, I will say this. When I was younger, are we talking particular tracks or just like score in general, or
It
just
could be
like
tracks. It could be tracks or
tracks?
whatever
Or
you
okay.
choose. Yeah.
Um, I gotta say, I gotta admit that when I was a kid, I was such an Ifukube, like an Ifukube fan, that I kind of dismissed. I don't feel this way now by any means, because as I got older, my tastes branched out a little more. I very musically varied, and I got into more things as I got older. I appreciated more things the more I heard them. Um, I wasn't a huge fan of Masaru Sato when I was a kid. I would listen to it, but it didn't hit me the same as Ifukube. And maybe it's because it wasn't as dark. I was always about the dark and the brooding and like the sad, and I was always about that stuff. That's why I became a metalhead, because I was into like intense, um, darker music. But with Masaru Sato, I kind of like would listen to it, but I wouldn't really like get that same feeling. Like I wouldn't be like, I'm gonna listen to this nonstop. I kind of,
Absolutely.
especially like movies like Son of Godzilla and you know in Ebira, I originally was like, the music is okay, but the older I got, and now my musical tastes, I am just as much of a Masaru Sato fan as I am a Fukube fan, just on a different level, like in different
Absolutely.
ways,
Yeah. I
and they
get you.
both to me equal, uh, but it just in different styles. And I've gotten into more Masaru Sato stuff outside of Godzilla, like his Kira Kurosawa works, like Yojimbo is a
Yo, Jimbo.
fantastic score. That main title theme is so good. Like you name any movie like that he's done, and I'd listen to it. So I'd say Masaru Sato as a whole, that music, they're mainly those movies. I kind of dismissed when I was younger, like when I was a kid, and now I do not, because they're freaking amazing pieces of
Right.
music. But yeah.
For me, I got two pieces of music for both of those categories. A piece of music that I loved when I first heard it, but now I don't really particularly care for it, and we touched on it earlier. The main theme to Godzilla 2000.
Yeah.
I liked it when I first heard it. When I watched it in the movie theater, me and the three other people that were in that theater that day. Oh, that was depressing.
There was two of us when I saw it, just my uncle and me.
Oh my God, that was so depressing. Like,
it
and
was
I'm
at
thinking,
Tinseltown. It was like this huge theater. It was like IMAX almost. It was a huge screen, and there was
my
two people
God,
in there. It was high rise seats. Yeah. It was just two of us.
I legit got upset. I really got mad. I'm like, where's everybody? Like,
Offended.
wait a minute. Like a year ago, there were more people to see that iguana look-alike fake trying to be Godzilla, but now the real deal is back, and there's only three of us in here. Like, I really got upset. I was
And
like,
he doesn't eat fish.
yes, like this is the giant fire-breathing Tokyo destroying classic version that we all
He's
know
not
and
running
love.
from helicopters. He's bulldozing towards them.
Right, and he's on the big screen, but yet there was only three people. Anyways, yeah, that main title, his main thing, it was fun what it was at the time, but now I look back and think about that really wasn't that good. And one thing that I didn't like when I first heard it, but now I kind of warming up to it now, and I love it more now. This may be controversial, but the main title to, at least the opening theme to Godzilla versus Kong, like that. Even though Kong lost, and then I'm still not over that, but but that theme, at least that main title opening credits, that song by, I guess, Junkie XL or whatever, it gets me pumped. Da 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 da. It's like it's like every time I watch it, I don't care that Kong loses at the end. I don't care about all that. That music. At first, I didn't like it. It had nothing to do with Kong losing, but I thought that the music when I first heard it wasn't that good. But now that I watched the movie more so now, and I'm warming up more to the movie now as a whole, I'm really warming up more so to the music. So
Sometimes
that's
it takes repetition of something to really let it hit home. Because when you first see something, you really know. Like, I have to be honest, and I know I didn't want to say this, but I'm going to say it. I love Tom Holkenborg, aka Junkie XL, who did. If you've ever seen Mad Max Fury Road, that score is furiously great. I mean, it's got the adrenaline of a fast moving train on fire. It is awesome, and I kind of expected something similar for Godzilla versus Kong, or Kong versus Godzilla, whichever way you say it. I forget. I am not a huge fan of that score at all. Actually, I guess I was wanting more of what Bear McCreary gave us.
Yeah, a lot
And
of
it was
people did.
completely different. Yeah. And I admire him for doing something different. And I know the director wanted a more synthesized sort of feel, like a more 80s style track score, but it just didn't hit for me. That's actually one that I wasn't even thinking about that. You brought up, I totally wasn't thinking about the Monsterverse at all on that. And I guess 2014 as well. I love Alexander Desplat. I'm probably butchering his name, by the way, but he's a great composer. He does a lot of Wes Anderson movies that I really enjoy, and he's got a really great style. But I don't know, that score for 2014 is not memorable at all, like in any facet for me. Like,
absolutely,
just
but again, it's just that theme, just hearing that, and then when they play it again, when Kong and Godzilla fight again in Hong Kong, and it's just hearing that again, it just and again, it makes me forget and not care that Kong loses. It's like that's what music would do. It just make you forget about certain things, and it just drives you into the moment, and and it's just killer. I know a lot of folks don't really care for it, but at the same time, it's something that I'm warming up to. All right, 3 more questions, and that'll be it. Whew. All right,
almost there.
All right.
You've been throwing a lot of curveballs. I appreciate it.
I hope. Hey, that's me. I try to do things very interesting.
Hey.
I hope thank you. I hope I've done a good job with that. All right, rank these Ifukube scores from your least favorite, to your most favorite, from your least to your most. All right. Okay. Frankenstein Conquers the World, War of the Gargantuas, King Kong Escapes.
I'm so
Rank
happy
them.
you did 3. If you did more than 3, I would have been like, okay, now what was the one again? Like I would be thinking about this way too long. I'm so happy you chose 3.
I want to do you like that.
Least to most. Okay. All really good scores. But if I had to choose
Absolutely.
a ranking, because I believe me, all 3 of those scores are awesome. Like I love all 3 of them equally. But if I were to pick a ranking for them, I would say the least would be King Kong Escapes.
Oh,
The second to, and then the middle one would be Frankenstein Conquer the World, and then the number 1 would be by the one I love the most. It's War of the Gargantuas. King Kong Escapes is great, and I love it, but and there's some really good themes in there. And the Mechanic Kong theme, the theme when Kong escapes, from he takes the
North
thing off.
Pole, yeah.
And the love theme, Linda Miller, when he picks,
yeah.
so beautiful and like very moving. But as a whole, it's not one that I will, if I were to rank those 3, and that's really hard, dude. That's like, those are really great scores. But if I had to rank them, if someone had a gun to my head, it was like, rank these now, that would be my ranking. And I love Frankenstein Conquers the World too. Like the Frankenstein versus Baragon. I believe it's actually just called Frankenstein versus Baragon 1, 2, 3, and 4.
It is.
It just replays the same thing in different pacing, but
yeah, pretty much.
That dun 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 dun
Dun,
dun dun
dun.
dun.
Yeah.
That, and they play it again in War of the Gargantuas when they're fighting at the end. That's a really great track, and I love Baragon's track, and it's a very creepy score, very Halloween, like if you were to watch a Halloween movie or something that's in that style, that would be one. But War of the Gargantua is number 1 for me because it's one of my favorite scores of all time. Everything about it from the very jump, the Gyra theme, Sanda's kind of more sympathetic tone, and it's everything about that score, man. The words got stuck in my throat after you asked.
I knew that was coming. Let's see. For me, it will be mine would be from least favorite to most favorite. It would be Frankenstein Conquers the World,
okay,
War of the Gargantuas, and King Kong Escapes. And the reason why and you would think I would choose War of the Gargantuas because like you, I love that movie too. It's my favorite non-Godzilla kaiju film. But I think that kind of like King Kong versus Godzilla, but not as extreme as I kind of bashed that film earlier. I remember you saying something on one of your live unboxings, I think around 2 or 3 weeks ago, when you were talking with Dave and a couple of people, and y'all were talking about music, and you mentioned something that I totally agree with. You said that you find that the final fight music, when Gyra and Sanda finally throw down, you actually don't like that and prefer the more frenetic American version.
Oh yeah, when the army's like chasing after Gyra, yeah.
And I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. I prefer the American soundtrack, even though they use Ifukube's tracks, but the song, the original Japanese version, is just like it was just slow and it just didn't fit the wild action of the Gargantuas really killing each other. But the frenetic in Frankenstein, not in Frankenstein, but the War of the Gargantuas American version, I just like that better. So that's the reason why I don't have War of the Gargantuas as my top. But everything about King Kong Escapes, every piece of music in that film I love. King Kong's theme, Gorsaurus' theme, Mechanic Kong's theme, just everything was amazing involving that score. So
absolutely,
that's my ranking.
And that's a really good ranking too, by the way. I feel like there's really no, if you were to ask a bunch of people this question, you get a varied response in terms of the combination. But honestly, you can't go wrong with any of them because they're all in a top 3 somewhere. I mean, they're all great scores. If you were to talk about specifically non-Godzilla scores, right, and just the Kaiju Eiga scores like that, oh man. So I'm thinking about so many of those tracks in my head. Now it's funny you mentioned the one that I mentioned, the the Mesa tank march, right? That dun 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 dun
Dun,
dun
dun,
dun 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 dun
yeah,
dun. Dun. He redid that for Godzilla versus Mothra when he encounters the G-Force Maser tanks.
yeah,
And I like that version of it because it's faster. It's more like, it fits the tone of the action. But I don't know if he was going for like Gyra being kind of slow and lumbering and big, but it came across less when, the villagers are like running for their lives, like Gyra's coming. And it's just kind of this odd tone that doesn't fit for me the moment. Like it's one of the
yeah,
few moments in Ifukube's run where I feel like he may have slightly missed it a little bit with that cue at that time. Whether he'd scored that for that moment, in particular, I don't know, because sometimes composers will compose stuff and the music editor will move it around and put it
right,
somewhere else
yes.
to fit and see. So maybe that wasn't where he intended to put
It
it
wasn't his call.
originally.
It wasn't his call, maybe.
But if it was, then hey, I won't be shy in saying he may have missed the mark on that one. At least in my critical analysis myself. Like someone else might feel different. That's fine. But yeah, man, that I'm glad you brought that up because I remember that here when I saw the Japanese version of that, I was expecting to hear the da 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 because I just
Yeah,
assumed that was part of the score, and I'm
me
like,
too.
what's this? I was like, this isn't what I remember at all. Maybe it's
It did.
nostalgia that I don't know. It's something.
It didn't match like I said, the really violent and really fast moving battle. It wasn't Godzilla fighting King Ghidorah where the heads are moving slow or whatever, and Godzilla, because they had to slow down the time frame on the movie. I mean, on the film itself to give the immensity of the monsters, because they couldn't have Godzilla move like you and I move because it would be like too, not too realistic,
Yeah.
But that music just didn't. It just again, when I heard you say that on that live unboxing, I was like that, and that was one of the reasons that got my gears turning. Like, you know what, I gotta do a show with that guy. So when you said that, I was like, because we feel a lot, we feel the same on a lot of different things when it comes to music. We feel the same way. Excuse me. So yeah, but yeah, Water Gargantuous prefer the American version. All right, two
Nice.
more questions. Two more
Whew.
questions. All
Right.
right, now we are talking about the music of these two films. Okay, you have to pick one or the other one. We ain't talking about quality, picture quality. We ain't talking about the design of the monster in each film. Whatever. One film may be heavily favored, one may not be heavily favored. But we're talking about the overall score of each film.
Okay.
In your opinion, which film score is better and probably more epic? King Kong 1976 or Godzilla 1985?
1985.
I'm going with John Barry's 76 King Kong.
Also a good choice. I'm not a huge fan of that movie as a whole, but the
Yeah,
score by John Barry, whoo, again, like you said, like I was saying, it's funny. They both have a very romantic sort of feeling to them, but in a different way. 84
mm-hmm.
is more darker and more brooding. This one is more romanticized. It's got the old quality to it, sort of like the 50s and 60s in there. Like it's very whimsical and like paints this picture of eeriness, but also kind of like wonder, like Kong's the eighth wonder of the world. Like John Barry's a
Yeah.
great composer, man. James Bond, he's a master at his craft. Um, but
But I think
yeah,
we all can agree. I think we all can agree that the music that accompanies when both Kong and Godzilla made their first full appearance.
oh
I think
yes,
each music, they're both perfect. Like if you
absolutely.
choose King Kong, you're not wrong. If you choose Godzilla, you're not wrong.
Now,
That's why I want to put these two scores together.
would you pick which one would you pick over those two appearances?
I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know because both scenes are epic. Both
Yes.
scenes are amazing. Both scenes they
Camera
build up
going
tension.
up.
That yes, they with Godzilla it's a slow pan up from the security guard's point of view. With Kong, they show you like close up of his face, the back of his head. From his point of view, the trees knocking down or being knocked down, and it's like both. That's the thing. That's why I say King Kong 76 is not getting enough love as it should. Kind of like I said with 85. Both of those films in particular, say what you will about them, but I think those films in particular are very, very severely, almost criminally underrated in my opinion. But if you
Agreed.
ask me to choose which one, this is the time where I'm Trump because I don't know. I don't know which one I would choose between which theme or which piece of music I find better when it comes to the revelation of each monster, Kong and Godzilla. I can't answer that.
You
So
know,
for the first time, somebody trumped me. You
hey,
trumped me.
what,
I don't know.
dude?
I bow
Okay,
down to you, sir.
now,
I
now
bow down to you.
I got myself in trouble because now I feel like I've trumped myself because when I said that to you, I was like, oh, what would I choose? I'm like, here's the thing. 76, you just when you brought up their emergences, their appearances, I was like instantly reminded that watching Kong and hearing that music, and like I said, I love progression. I love it when it builds to a climax. It's so good. 76 when he's blowing through the trees and you hear the music, you hear that ba dun 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 dun. It's like he's coming. Like, get ready. With Godzilla, it's just a different feel, but it's the same emotion that will pull. Like, oh man, I'm gonna pull that one and say it's a neutral ground for now. I can't really think about it. It's too much. It's too much for my brain to think about. But
Again, we will revisit this topic with other people, but as you see so far,
yeah,
it's going on 2 hours, and it barely feels like 2 hours. You
it.
know, but
I
again,
really.
yes, it's like an hour 50 minutes.
Oh my
But this is
goodness.
but see that's what happens when you have great conversations with great people, and of course the chat has been awesome.
It has been. I've
Um,
been looking. I've been looking, guys. I've been seeing. So you all have really good points. I just want you to know I'm looking at the chat as we go.
Yeah,
Great
I
stuff.
mean there was one person that was kind of a butthole, but I blocked him. So, but
Uh oh.
but yeah, because that person was not going to rain on this parade. I'm sorry, you can hate on me or whatever, or my crew, nature, whatever, but you're not going to crap on this positive experience. You know what I mean? But yeah, again, you trump
Definitely.
me. That has never been done before. Nobody has ever trumped me
Oh,
before. I'm always the one that's trumping other people. Say choose between this and this, and they always hate me for it. They always say you're just cruel for doing that. But for the first time, you own the designation of being the first person to trump the trumper.
whoa.
You had
Woo.
Trump the Trumpy or
Good
whatever I
lord,
am.
dude. Okay, so wow. I don't even know what to say to that, but I will say this: since you brought up 76, I will raise it a little bit and say that the score for King Kong Lives. If you just listen to the score
Oh boy, you
and not
lost
the
me.
movie,
You lost me.
the score.
You
No,
lost
wait.
me.
The score, okay, John Scott, who did the score, he tried his hardest, man. Like the movie is okay. The movie's like, I'm not a fan, but the music is it's one I have this thing where sometimes I feel like the music overshadows the movie. The movie does a worse job. The music does a better job. The music I could separate and just listen to it on its own and not think about the movie. That's kind of that way with King Kong Lives. I don't know what it's something about it. Maybe it was when I saw it when I was young. I saw it before 76, by the way, for some odd reason. It was at the video store. I rented it. I don't know. It was like on,
Yeah, yeah.
but damn, dude, like when Kong fights the army at the end, and it's just like really like intense, and his
I agree.
theme and that,
I
like
agree.
it's good. But the movie, I do not like that movie. But the music, I could just listen to the music anytime. It's only a few tracks really, because like the rest of the soundtrack is kind of goofy, but there's a few tracks in there that are really like really epic and pull a lot of emotion out. Like when he's like when it's like the main title, I think, when he's getting worked on, and it's like da, na, na, na. It sounds
Yeah, yeah.
sort of John Williamsy, right? Like I don't know.
That's
It's
what I
just
was thinking when I watched that.
yeah,
But
it's very
basically,
well,
what you're
yeah,
saying, is that King Kong Lives for you is like Gamera's Super Monster for me. You
yeah,
recognize it.
absolutely,
You recognize the film ain't that great, but at least the music is good enough where you can at least push through the movie. Fair to say?
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely,
All
100%.
right. All right. This is the final question, and again, we will go into a more of a expanded discussion with more people. I'm sure Dave would love to be on this, and I'm sure Kyle would.
Yes, definitely.
Maybe maybe somebody from Monster with Attitude, maybe AJ from
Ooh,
Kaiju Live. The door is open. So if you love music and love talking about this stuff at the degree that we've been talking about this for the past 2 hours, we would love to have you. You know what I'm saying?
come, yes, yes.
All right. This is word association. Okay, so give me the first word that comes to your mind when I
Oh,
say these
geez.
when I say these composers.
I'm terrible
All
at
right,
this. Okay.
Bear McCreary,
Tribal.
Michiru Oshima,
Uh, Majestic.
Ko Otani,
Fun.
Masaru Sato,
Jazzy.
and finally Akira Ifukube.
Legend.
Now, for me, I would say Bear McCreary, cool. Michiru Oshima, um, awesome successor. Ko Otani, Ko Otani. I would say majestic. Masaru Sato, fun, extremely fun. And Akira Ifukube, I would say genius. That's what I would say.
See,
And so with
you
that,
did it. I like how you did yours because like you kind of like ranked them at first. That was fun. I was like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about doing it that way. That's cool. The word association is fun because like I'm not really good at that stuff, but like I guess yeah, Koutani fun, but like maybe energetic would be another one if I had to think of it. I mean, it's so hard, dude. Putting me on the spot like that again. I got you, and then you got me right back. You were like, boom,
that's
man,
what
I
I
got you.
do.
I got you.
That's what I do. And so, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be the end of our mild, light discussion of our favorite pieces in kaiju music. Face the Kaiju Music Part 1, if you will. I want to thank my awesome guest, the one and the only Jonathan Portman. Again, on behalf of the rest of the Collect All Monsters crew, we thank you so much for being not only a great supporter, a believer in our endeavor, for being a moderator of our group, for presenting us with ideas, for doing the Turntable Tuesdays, just everything that you have done, just not only just for us, but for the community as well. Like you're one of the reasons why this community is the best in the world. Now, are there some knuckleheads out there? Yes, but by and large, this is a great community, and you are a shining and perfect example as to why this community is so great. And again, on behalf of the Collect All Monsters crew and everybody out there, we thank you for doing what you have done and what you continue to do. We really appreciate the Turntable Tuesdays and you sharing us with music. And again, it just brings back all these memories of us sitting at home when we were kids. And here we are, adults, still loving this stuff, but sitting at home on a Saturday afternoon with a blanket, watching King Kong and Godzilla and all these monsters beat the crap out of each other for our enjoyment. And that music is key to bringing us back. So thank you so much for doing what you have done and what you will continue to do. We really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I lost for words. Thank you. I mean, I so appreciate and feel grateful that you have invited me to do this. And I just feel grateful to be a part of this community. I mean, like you said, there's a lot of great people here, and this is what makes it so much fun. And I truly do appreciate every single one of you. And I've made some great friends throughout this venture too. It's just a really great community. And yeah, like you said, there's some toxicity out there, but for the most part, man, I can't thank you enough for bringing me on along for this ride. It's been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to continue it, dude. I love it so much.
Yes, we will definitely, like I said, get involved with more people and have you back on. You have not seen the last of Leslie P. Chambers and Jonathan Portman collaboration, even if it's not just kaiju music. I'm sure at
Absolutely.
some point we will get together down the road and discuss more on Collect All Monsters or maybe on my channel, whatever. But you have not seen the last of this collaboration. But again, this is the first show of a few to come on today, especially if you're a kaiju fan, kaiju collector. Like I said, on 8 o'clock, you got the Monsters with Attitude crew. They're doing a retrospective from the Monsterverse. And then later on tonight, around 9 o'clock, the return of Fresh Vinyl Live. So if you're a Godzilla fan, a kaiju fan, a collector, you got your night planned out. You got some awesome content coming your way. So please go to the Monsters with Attitude show as well as Fresh Vinyl Live. And you'll see us definitely in the chat on those shows. And we'll have a fun day as always. But before we go, let's share this theme song. Okay, I'll go first, and then you go next, and then we'll finish up together. Ready?
Okay.
Up from the depths,
30 stories high,
breathing
breathing
fire.
fire. His
His
head
head in the sky. Godzilla!
Godzilla.
Godzilla! Godzilla!
And Godzuki. And then finish it off.
Godzilla! Oh, thank you, Jonathan Portman. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for everybody in the chat. Please go. Please become a member of the Collect All Monsters Facebook group, Monster Collectors on Facebook. Please subscribe to the Collect All Monsters YouTube channel. We're like 953 subscribers. We're trying to get to that 1,000. I'm sure we'll get there sooner rather than later. But again, thank you for everybody that's been here for the past couple of hours talking about our favorite pieces of kaiju music. Again, Monster with Attitude, talk about the Monsterverse later on, and the return of Fresh Vinyl Live. You got yourself a fun-filled packed Saturday on your hands. So thank y'all so much. Really do appreciate it. And
thank you, everybody. Thank you.
And as Kyle says at the end of our shows on a monthly basis, I'm gonna do the same thing he does because you know he has that deep radio voice. Okay, here we go. All right. Our planet may be doomed, our Earth devastated, the monsters are in revolt, and civilization is in chaos. We must unite and collect all monsters! Take care, folks. Bye.
See you guys.